and not Minister of International Trade? Was this a deliberate attempt to fudge the issue? When was the letter sent to the ministry, please?
I don't have the detail when was the letter sent to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but I can reassure the leader of the opposition that a request has been made to that effect.
Speaker, 9 months have gone by, prices have doubled, and there's nothing to show for this committee who sat. Can I ask the Minister whether there's one Mr. Jawahir? This same Jawahir was interdicted for corruption. Is he not the person representing the ministry until recently? And was he not the person in charge of that famous subcommittee in charge of regressive markup, which has never, up to after 9 months, produced a single report?
Mr. Speaker, sir, actually the leader of opposition is right. Mr. Jawahir was a member of that technical committee, and he was chairing the subcommittee. But at the end of the day, it is good to note that Mr. Jawahir has been replaced by one Mrs. Elai, who is now chairing one of the subcommittees.
Mr. Minister, why, given that the two regressive markup and the parallel imports are strong recommendations of WHO, why Dr. Musango and his team in Mauritius have never been contacted by this committee to see whether they could provide assistance given the dramatic increases in prices of medicine that we have seen in recent years, as confirmed by the minister himself, doubling in 2.5 years? Why?
Mr. Speaker, sir, in any event, WHO has made recommendation. I don't think the presence of Dr. Musango on the technical committee would be advisable. We will go by the guidelines, by the recommendations of the World Health Organization.
Talking about the guidelines of 2020 by the WHO, I'm asking as far as implementation is concerned, how much would it have cost you to get a team of WHO experts, consultants, to come and to help you as far as best practice? This is not the only country in the world with parallel imports and generic substitution. Why? And regressive markup, why didn't you get? Or is it in fact that the whole committee is just, or is it really that this whole committee is just a joke to protect some vested interests?
Certainly not, Mr. Speaker, sir, but any recommendation, any proposition is welcome, and we can consider, because, look, Dr. Musango is the regional director of the World Health Organization in Mauritius. We'll have to seek his agreement before we co-opt him on any board or technical committee.
Speaker, at a time when the country is reeling from high prices, this morning only, as you know, there have been increases. And, Mr. Speaker, therefore, why isn't it an urgent matter for the Minister to apply the regressive markup system as recommended by WHO and the Competition Commission immediately? Why isn't it an urgent matter for you, Minister? May I ask you?
Mr. Speaker, sir, as per the report, applying regressive markup is a complex issue, okay? So let the technical committee finish its work and recommend whatever recommendation they'll make, and then we will consider. But one thing I can tell you straight away, in addition to the recommendations of the Competition Commission for regressive markup, my ministry is also independently considering a review or a downwards of the maximum markup. Okay, furthermore, the possibility of applying different markups for different medicines is also being considered at the moment.
I have the minutes of the 4 committees here, and the public will see that, in fact, nothing has been done in these 4 committees except blah, blah, blah. And that has happened over the last 9 months, Mr. Speaker, because the ministry just is not interested in bringing prices down to protect consumers. Mr. Speaker, coming to parallel importation now. You cannot give us a date. I'm sure that your PS at the back of you there can provide the date that you sent. I'm sure that your officers.
Honorable Leader of Opposition, don't comment upon any stranger assisting the Assembly. Please, behave yourself.
I am behaving. I may have done something wrong, but I'm not misbehaving.
You name one, Mr. Jawari. Now you're talking about PS and all this. This is very
Mr. Jawahir, Mr. Speaker, is a relevant part of this question. I'm sorry about that. I withdraw the reference to the PS. Now, but I will not withdraw the reference about Mr. Jawahir. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the Minister to give us the date that the letter was sent to the Ministry of International Trade, or his ministry in such disarray that he cannot provide the date of the letter.
Well, I am informed, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the matter has been discussed with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs since last year, and I confirm that a letter has been sent to the relevant
ministry. That can be coming. Let the Minister reply.
Date for the letter, please.
And
the date for the letter. What's that becoming?
Question. If you have.
What is the date of the letter? That's a question.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I mentioned it earlier. Unfortunately, I don't have the date. The letter was sent to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I confirm that a letter has been sent to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and also the matter was discussed with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs last year. So this is to comfort the leader of the opposition. We are not sleeping on our laurels. We are actually looking into the proposition and the recommendation of the Competition Commission.
This morning I went to the pharmacy. I bought one Nexium at 55 rupees for one, 550 rupees for 10, and one Nexmazole, absolutely same molecule, for 14 rupees for 140 rupees for 10. This is one is an original branded product and one is a generic. There's a huge saving that can be made by sick people in Mauritius simply by the fact that legislation should be provided, not to facilitate only, but to oblige chemists and doctors to offer the generic alternative. Here in this case, Mr. Speaker, if you take 2 a day, it's 110 rupees against 28 rupees. I'm asking to Mr. On July, Mr. Speaker, one of the first things that was noted, here it is, paragraph 1.4. It is also noted that recommendations pertaining to the amendment of legislation is being sent to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And so I think this is Mr. Speaker. So why is the generic taking so long? What is happening? Where is the legislation? I may have got the wrong paragraph, but why is the legislation taking so long? There you are, Mr. Speaker. Informed that currently the Ministry of Health was processing a request to legalize generic substitution by pharmacists. I'm sorry, I got the wrong paragraph before. This is of 28th July. Yeah, the question is why? 28th July, the Ministry of Health, Mr. Jawahir, was asked to prepare legislation.
So I will disallow this question. You're going out of bound. Either you leave it for the Minister to reply, or you reply, Minister?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. Like I said earlier on, the use of generic medicine does not specifically fall under the mandate of my ministry. We have taken the matter with the Ministry of Health, and they are currently looking into the prospect of importing generic medicine. I have been informed also that currently the Ministry of Health, which caters for 75% of the population who are in need of medical care and medicines, they are using generic medicine at the hospital.
At the private sector, Mr. Speaker, on 2 weeks ago, this is what Dr. Jagatpal said. The recommendations of the Competition Commission is under the mandate of the Minister of Commerce and Consumer Protection, so he refuses to answer questions. Here, the Minister of Commerce and Consumer Protection says it is the Ministry of Health. And his own minutes, 1.1, says that the technical committee has been set up to examine the recommendations of the report of the Competition Commission. So now he tells us that he is not concerned with generic medicine? How come? Please tell me which minister we should go to. Not him, not you, who?
I will not say that we are not concerned with the use, making available to the general public the use of generic medicine. But let me remind the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, it is our government that in 2016, when we announced that Mauritius would adhere to the Patent Cooperation Treaty, Hague Convention, and Madrid Protocol to facilitate registration of patent, trademark, and industrial design. Okay, it has something to do with generic medicine. It's good to know that in 2020, Mr. Speaker, sir, India, which remained the main supplier of pharmaceutical products to Mauritius, with 31% of the market share, followed by France, 15%, Germany, 9%, UK, 5%. The then leader of the opposition, Honorable Boulel, in June 2020, during debate on 2020-2021 budget exercise, had criticized vehemently our choice of encouraging importation of generic medicine from India. Look,
this is not addressed to you.
Let me state what Honorable Boulel stated. Okay. Honorable Boulel said that we are importing substandard medication. Substandard medication. You're talking about the same generic medicine which the Ministry of Health is currently importing, which represents 31% of the medicine imported from India. So which is which?
Wait.
Which is which?
We're talking about making medicine much cheaper to the public going to the pharmacy. 3/4 of medicines are purchased privately in the pharmacy. The minister should know that. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to ask, there's a bias by importers and pharmacists not to offer generic products because the markup as it stands is far, far less the profit on generic products than on branded products. That is why we need legislation to make sure that doctors and chemists and pharmacists prescribe that. I'm going to ask the Honourable Minister, just tell me, how many times has government checked on the quality of products imported in Mauritius? I'll give you the answer, never in the last few years. And this is what the Honourable previous leader of the opposition meant, I'm sure. Never. Tell me now, how many times have you checked?
Let him reply.
Let me, the difference between branded name and generic drugs, Mr. Speaker, sir. While branded name drug refers to the name given by producing company, generic refers to drug produced after the active ingredient of the brand name drug. So basically, the same ingredient, the same chemical composition or molecule is being used to produce generic medicines. So there's no substandard whatever.
Mr. Speaker, every country has a quality control laboratory to check the quality of medicine being given to the population. I mean, you don't need to go back to school to know this. Mr. Speaker, now, may I talk about transparency and corruption? Because the market study has a whole chapter on the process, which is opaque and perverted. the amount of time it's taking, the possibility of conflict of interest on the pharmacy board and the therapeutics committee, the guidelines for registration, which are still now not publicly available, Mr. Speaker, sir. People have been refused registration of medicine without giving any reasons. I would like, yes, may I finish? I would like to ask Honourable Minister, what has his committee, I don't even see anything being mentioned on that, what has his committee done to ensure that the concerns of the Competition Commission falling under his ministry have been taken into account so far as the process which has been taken over by some importers? What about the process of registration of medicine?
Mr. Speaker, sir, the technical committee is still working on the recommendation. I have not been communicated with any recommendation, final recommendation yet. So as soon as the work will be completed, I'm sure I will be apprised of the recommendation and I will inform the House accordingly.
Time over. Prime Minister's question time. Honourable members, the table has advised that PQB 385 and B400 would be replied by the Honourable Acting Prime Minister, time permitting. PQ B335 and B339 have been withdrawn.
B315.
Mr. Speaker, sir, according to established practice, participation in an official mission of board members or senior management of a public or statutory body is subject to the approval of the relevant parent ministry. In this particular case, I'm informed that no approval has been conveyed by the Honourable Prime Minister for Mr. DNSW to proceed on official mission to France from 21st to 24th February 2022. As such, parts A and B of the question do not arise.
From the Acting Prime Minister, who has paid the air ticket? Which authority has paid the air ticket and how much?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part of the question.
Which authority has paid the air ticket and the cost of the air ticket? Whether he has been informed of that?
Well, I'm given to understand that this was not an official mission, and therefore Mr. DNSW, inasmuch as he travelled privately, would be responsible for any costs attendant to his trip.
As the Acting Prime Minister, he has stated that he, with this chairperson, travelled privately. Can he inform the House whether during that private trip, which he has effected, he had meetings, official meetings, on behalf of the ICTA with French authorities, French organizations, and whether reports have been forwarded to the parent ministry on these so-called meetings he had during his private trip.
So again, I didn't hear clearly the last question. Have reports been
circulated to the parent ministry, to the Prime Minister's office?
So again, for a private trip, there is no need for reports to be circulated to the parent ministry. But inasmuch as the question was asked, I have inquired, and this is what my information indicates. Both at personal level and at institutional level, there is a long relationship of friendship and a working relationship between the regulatory authority in Mauritius, that is the ICTA, and regulatory authorities in France, that is, the Autorité de régulation des communications électroniques et des postes, l'ARCEP, the Agence nationale des fréquences, the ANFR, and the Autorité de régulation de la communication audiovisuelle et numérique, l'ARCOM. Now, accordingly, in the course of his visit to France, I understand that Mr. DNSW would have met Mr. Gilles Brégan, the General Director of ANFR, and Mr. Jean-Pierre Le Pesteur, its chairperson, as well as Mrs. Laure de la Rodière, President of ARCEP, and Mr. Roch-Olivier Mestre, President of ARCOM, in the course of that trip.
Can I ask the acting Prime Minister to inquire with the Prime Minister's office whether the Finance Department of the ICTA issued purchasing order to one travel agency for the purchase of the air tickets of the part-time chairperson, Mr. DMSW?
I will repeat what I said, Mr. Speaker, sir, inasmuch as this was a private trip. Neither government nor the ICTA will or has been responsible for any attendant costs.
Next question.
May I thank the Honourable Gentleman for drawing our attention to the judgment delivered on 11th April 2022 by the Supreme Court of Mauritius in the matter of Marie-Ange Brick, born Cale, and the Registrar of Civil Status. The gist of the case, Mr. Speaker, as honourable members of the House may be interested in learning, is that upon making an application in November 27 for a birth certificate in order to obtain a new national identity card, Mrs. Marie-Ange Brick, born on 10th October 1964, was informed that she is, according to the civil status record, registered as having passed away on 5th April 1973 at the age of 8 years old, as her birth certificate was annotated with the mention, quote unquote, deceased on 5th April 1973. Now, Mrs. Marie-Ange Brick believes that her birth certificate was erroneously used to declare the death of her half-sister, Marie Rosinette Cale, who passed away on 5th April 1973 at the age of 8. She was therefore advised by the civil status officer to seek redress before the Supreme Court, which she eventually did. Now, Mr. Speaker, after considering the evidence on record, the judge concluded that the plaintiff was wrongly declared dead instead of her half-sister, Marie Rosinette Cale, and therefore ordered the defendant, that is the Registrar of Civil Status, to, I quote, A, delete the annotation deceased on, décédé le 5 April 1973 in the plaintiff's birth certificate. B, insert the annotation deceased on, décédé le 5 avril 1973 in the birth certificate of Marie Rosinette Cale. C, amend the death certificate, number 10 of 1973 of Beducap Registration Office in the District of Savane, by deleting the names Marie-Ange and the national identity card, the corresponding national identity card, and replacing them by the names Marie Rosinette and the corresponding identity card, respectively. And D, to cause this order to be registered and the relevant entries to be made in the appropriate registers, unquote. Now, it is apposite to note that in the observations and findings of the judgment, the Honourable Judge stated, and I quote, I must at the very outset state that it is a matter of regret that this case took 4 years to be in shape. it must be highlighted that the state is under the obligation, under various international and regional instruments to which it is a party, to see to it that everybody's right to recognition as a person before the law is upheld. See, for example, Article 6 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 16 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and Article 5 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. It cannot be denied that the very enjoyment by a person of fundamental human rights, including his or her access to health care and other services, is predicated in contemporary Mauritius on that person having a valid birth certificate and a national identity card. It is incumbent, therefore, on the defendant and other relevant authorities to ensure that any such application is dealt with on an expedited basis. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, Mauritius fully ascribes to the provisions of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights that I have just quoted and to which the question refers, which all assert the right to recognition of a person before the law. I am informed by the Registrar of Civil Status that there are a multitude of factors that may contribute to delays in the preparation and consideration of such cases, keeping in mind that this process involves inter alia, and I'll give the examples of the different steps involved. Firstly, the issue of a plaintiff summons to concerned parties by the Supreme Court, including the Registrar of Civil Status. Secondly, the seeking legal assistance from the Attorney General's office by the Registrar of Civil Status upon receipt of the summons. Thirdly, submission by the Registrar of Civil Status of official copies of civil extracts and photostats of registers to the Attorney General's office. Fourthly, carrying out of relevant inquiries by the police department. Fifthly, carrying out of relevant social inquiries by the probation office. Sixthly, identification of witnesses and their availability and evidence of the case. And seventhly, the cases being called pro forme by the Supreme Court. I am further informed at the level of the Civil Status Division that the following measures have already been taken to mitigate and or avoid such errors. In 2001, a civil status database was introduced, a computerized civil status database whereby all civil registrations are recorded electronically. Further, the Section 38(1)(b) of the Civil Status Act of 1981 has been amended in August 2020 so that officers of the Civil Status Office have the obligation to, inter alia, electronically verify the accuracy of the information on the deceased before registering the death. Moreover, Section 50 of the Civil Status Act 1981, which relates to amendment of entries and is applicable in such matters, has been further reinforced by amending Section 3 of the Civil Status Act 1981 in August 2020, in addition to Section 33GA, to cater for mistakes of a clerical, typing, and numerical nature. And finally, the death registration module was enhanced in April 2021, and details pertaining to parents and spouse are automatically pulled from the civil status database, which was not possible before the introduction of the module. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, further to the judgment in the matter of Marie-Ange Brick-Boncale and the Registrar of Civil Status, dated 11th April 2022, all concerned parties will be called upon to review the procedures adopted so as to expedite matters in such cases. I have requested the Prime Minister's office to coordinate this endeavour, and I shall, of course, welcome any other suggestions that the honourable gentleman may have.
In the context of that new development from the Prime Minister's office, would it be considered that pending applications, in this case, in such similar cases, consideration be given to exempting applicants from the need to produce their national identity card until the matter is finally sorted out?
Once again, Mr. Speaker, the suggestion is most welcome. I do not know what the actual implications of the suggestion made by the honourable gentleman might be, but I shall certainly be pleased to bring it to the attention of the honourable Prime Minister.
This issue of right to be recognized as person also crops up in matters of tardy declaration. And there's a lot of people, including people, children living in shelters, who don't know who their parents are. And they're having problems when they reach the age of 18 to be recognized because the Ministère Public cannot give a conclusion favorable so that a birth certificate can be issued. So may I also, Acting Prime Minister, also to see with his officer whether there can be a expedited, channel for tardy declaration where, children reaching the age of 18 has to be given an identity card, and through no fault of theirs, because the system requires going through all these court processes, it takes years for them to be issued this ID card.
I fully understand the concern of the honourable member. Fortunately, these cases are less and less frequent, but if the honourable gentleman has any specific case in mind, I shall be very happy to draw the Prime Minister's attention to any such case.
The table had been advised that PQB 219, 322, 325, 329, 327, 331, and 332 have been withdrawn. Next question.
B-stroke 317, please.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with your permission, I propose to reply to PQs B317 and B327 together in as much as they relate to the same subject matter. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is proper that I should remind the House that on Wednesday, 10th July 2019 at 16:20 hours, following a request made by the service manager of Scomat Limited, situated at Greenwalls Lane, Pi, a team from the Anti-Drug and Smuggling Unit, ADSU, proceeded to the location of this company. I'm informed by the Commissioner of Police that A, the ADSU officers were informed by the manager of the company that on the same day at around 15:30 hours, while two employees were inspecting the engine of a wheel loader imported by the company from Brazil, they found 3 black kit bags which were concealed in the engine compartment near the exhaust muffler of the said vehicle. The bags were handed over for safekeeping to the store supervisor, who, while checking the 3 bags, came across several rectangular parcels, each containing suspicious substance. The 3 bags were handed over to ADSU officers, who opened them in the presence of the employees on the spot at that moment, and the contents thereof were suspected to be dangerous drugs. An inquiry into the matter was immediately initiated by the ADSU, and the exhibits were secured and sent to the Forensic Science Laboratory for examination. I am informed that in the course of the inquiry, the drugs secured from the 3 bags were identified as cocaine, The total weight of the drugs seized was 85 kilograms, 166.8 grams of a street value amounting to 1.4 billion rupees. And I'm also informed that to date, statements from 18 persons, including employees of SCOMAC Limited, have been recorded by ADSU officers. So far, no evidence has been obtained that could lead to the arrest of any person and that could also shed further light on the circumstances of this discovery and help in the investigation. But the honourable members may be interested to learn that according to further information obtained from the Commissioner of Police, the police inquiry was able to determine the itinerary of the wheel loader from the port of embarkation to its destination. According to intelligence, the vehicle was embarked in Brazil for Mauritius. The wheel loader was offloaded in Morocco and re-embarked for shipment to Mauritius. I'm also given to understand that ADSU has liaised with Interpol as well as the Brazilian and Moroccan authorities for further intelligence that could have provided a lead in the inquiry. However, the exercise has proved extremely complex as it requires the collaboration of a multiplicity of international agencies. In view of the complexity of the investigation in this case, I am informed that the Commissioner of Police is submitting an interim report to the Director of Public Prosecution for advice as to the way forward.
Mr. Speaker, so the acting Prime Minister has given almost a copycat reply of what the Prime Minister said. Can we ask the acting Prime Minister, why is the inquiry taking so long? It's more than 3 years since investigation started. Why is it taking so long? Where is your unflinching commitment to wage war on drugs? Is this your unflinching commitment?
Let us hear the reply.
Is the question over? Yes. I would invite the honourable gentleman, through you, Mr. Speaker, not to get excited. That it would be bad for his health.
Okay.
Yes, but we can.
No, you're repeating your question. No, you're repeating the same facts. No, you're very romantic. Keep quiet.
Yes. Beyond the political posturing of the honourable gentleman, Mr. Speaker.
What is happening now? Let him answer. Let him give his reply. You cannot bully a minister. Yeah, but he should give his reply. You're not interested in that reply? Are you sure?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It would seem that for some, when they are in opposition, question time is a matter of intimidation and bullying. And I'm afraid this does not work. We can certainly have a proper, courteous and polite exchange in the course of question time. Now, in this particular case, I have taken the pain to answer the honourable gentleman as well as Honourable Nagalingam, who asked the same question. I have provided all the information that is at hand as provided for by the police. And we are well aware that in order not to, should I say, destabilize, interfere with a police investigation, of course, we cannot go into each and every detail. This is a case where drug has been found in Mauritius on a vehicle imported from overseas. The police have taken statements from all persons who could conceivably have some relevant information to offer. The police has been in contact with all the international agencies And we have been able, the police has been able, to establish where this, whatever it's called, excavator, wheel loader came from, how it traveled to Mauritius, where it transited, and how it was disembarked here in Mauritius and taken to Pai. Now, the investigation at this point in time has not yielded any further information. And the Honourable Gentleman who has been in government, as well as Honourable Nagalingam, might realise that such cases are exceedingly difficult to solve. So to be committed to fight with all our means against the drug scourge, and I think the number of seizures over the last couple of years testifies to the will of government, to the will of this Prime Minister, to the will of the police to protect our population and to unmask and act against drug importers and drug peddlers. However, that does not mean that we live in a perfect world where each and every case can instantaneously be solved. Now, in this particular case, on the basis of the information yielded by the investigation, as provided for by law, the Commission of Police proposes to refer the interim report to the Director of Public Prosecution for him to advise as to the way forward. And I hope the Honourable Gentleman will see no objection to that.
Speaker, my concern is the concern of one and all, and I'm glad that the Acting Prime Minister has stated the inquiry is still ongoing. My concern is also with the ADSU. Is he aware that in the past, exhibits kept at ADSU headquarters have disappeared and replaced by substitute like the boost? This is why I'm saying these drugs finally ended up in the streets to maim, to kill our kids.
So this is an assumption, sir.
It's not an assumption, I'm saying the truth. Are you aware that...
No, don't discuss with me. Don't discuss with me. Don't discuss. The good part of it, that is, you allow some laughter. Now, no,
he's
no
aware
debate,
of it.
no comments.
Mr. Speaker,
Let
I do concede that the Honourable Gentleman is much more aware than I am of what took place prior to 2014. But the question does not relate to the past. And the Honourable Gentleman, who is a seasoned parliamentarian, quite apart from realising that he should not constantly interrupt the person who is trying to answer his question, the Honourable Gentleman should be aware that supplementary questions are meant to elucidate the question asked. So if the Honourable Gentleman would wish to have information pertaining to past cases, he is most welcome to present a proper question, and I'm sure the Prime Minister will address his concerns.
Monsieur le Président, le Premier ministre suppléant parle de 85 kilos de cocaïne, alors qu'en 2019, la communication de la police avait parlé de 95 kilos de cocaïne. Deuxième petite chose que je voudrais savoir du Premier ministre suppléant, il concède lui-même, après 3 ans, 2019 à 2022, que l'enquête n'a pas été aboutie, que personne jusqu'ici n'a été arrêté. Donc, 3 ans après, Monsieur le Premier ministre suppléant, peut-on conclure que les trafiquants de drogue, à la hauteur de 1,6 milliard de roupies, sont toujours dans la nature et continuent de nuire à nos enfants et à la famille mauricienne? Peut-on conclure à cela?
Quelle était la question au final? Peut-on conclure que les trafiquants de drogue sont toujours dans la nature? Bon, alors si... D'abord, M. Monsieur le député attire mon attention sur le fait que je me suis référé à une quantité de 85 kilos, alors que la police aurait antérieurement parlé de 95 kilos. Je n'ai pas ces renseignements. On m'a communiqué le chiffre de 85 kilos. En ce qui concerne les responsables, il doit bien y avoir un responsable. Il y a bien un responsable quelque part. Ce responsable se trouve-t-il... Pardon, je me permets d'éclairer l'Assemblée nationale. Je comprends que 95 kilos was inclusive of packaging. Voilà la différence selon les renseignements qui m'ont été fournis. Si vous avez des renseignements, parce qu'il est important qu'on sache la vérité, si vous avez d'autres renseignements, il est de votre devoir de nous communiquer l'information. Et je vois que le Premier ministre, Monsieur le Premier ministre, le 7 juillet 2020, s'était référé, je cite, « The free bags were found to contain a total amount of 92.5 kilos, including also the wrappings ». Donc c'est probablement la réponse à cette différence que vous avez relevée avec raison. Donc il y a bien un responsable. Est-ce que ce responsable, il est au Brésil? Est-ce qu'il est au Maroc? Est-ce qu'il est à Maurice? Nul ne le sait à ce stade. Est-ce que cette drogue était destinée à Maurice? Ou est-ce qu'il y a eu quelque part, parmi les responsables, erreur? Nul ne le sait. L'enquête s'est efforcée d'abord de retracer la route qu'aurait suivi donc ce véhicule pour parvenir à Maurice. La police tente toujours d'obtenir de l'étranger des renseignements quant à ce qui s'est passé au moment de l'embarquement ou du transit. Mais à Maurice, à ce stade, nous n'avons pas plus d'informations. Et c'est pour cela, comme le prévoit la loi, que tout le dossier va être référé au DPP pour que nous soyons mieux instruits quant à la voie à suivre, que la police soit mieux instruite.
The table have been advised that PQ B334, B341, B342 have been withdrawn. Honourable Member, the table has been advised that PQ B362 will be replied by the Honourable Minister of National Infrastructure and Community Development. PQ B415 will be replied by the Honourable Acting Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Development. PQ B353, 368, 406, 420 have been withdrawn. Honourable David.
B345.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm informed by the Road Development Authority that the upgrading of the Metosab Road B31 concerns works from its junction with Albion Road B78 to the Prison Road at Petit Berger over a length of 2.7 kilometers. The road also provides an alternative route to La Tour-Koenig Industrial Zone. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to Part A and C of the question, I'm informed by the RDA that following a national bidding exercise carried out, the contract for the upgrading works was awarded to Gamma Construction Limited for a total amount of 114.5 million rupees, inclusive of VAT. However, only an amount of 96.7 million, inclusive of VAT, was paid to the contractor based on the value of the works completed. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm informed that the initial scope of work covered a distance of 2.7 kilometers, of which 2.5 kilometers have been carried out and completed by the RDA. With respect to the remaining 200 meters of road, as the National Development Unit had already appointed a contractor in November 2018, namely Best Construct Company Limited, for the construction of a drain at Cresserelle Avenue,
the RDA and the NDU jointly agreed that the latter's contractor would undertake this upgrading work with a view to ensuring a proper integrated drainage and road network. In this respect, the contractor, that is the Best Construct Company Limited, revised its initial contract value for the construction of the drain from 25.2 million to 31.5 million, inclusive of VAT, to enable it not only to cater for the 200 meters road, which were initially to be undertaken by the RDA, but also for the additional works relating to the enlargement and resurfacing of the Pointe-Sable Road B31, over some 500 meters from the junction with Avenue Cresserelle up to the sea outlet for extension work uphill at Cresserelle Avenue. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm further informed that in view of some contractual issues on one hand, and as there were land acquisition issues on the other hand, the construction of the drain project was put in abeyance in year 2019. Subsequently, after having obtained all necessary clearances and taking into account the new resources brought in by the contractor, works have resumed early this month and are expected to be completed by 31st July 2022. In fact, there is a close supervision and monitoring on the contractor's work to ensure the revised contractual completion date is respected. Mr. Speaker, sir, as regard to Part B of the question, I'm informed that the works undertaken by the RDA consisted of the following. Firstly, widening and upgrading of the road with a maximum width of 7 meters and a shoulder of 1.2 meters wide on both sides. Secondly, realignment of the horizontal and vertical curves. Thirdly, construction of a box culvert. Fourth, provision of drainage structures. Fifth, provision of miscellaneous road safety furniture, such as road marking, handrail, traffic sign, cat eyes, etc. Temporary traffic diversions. Demolition of the existing masonry block wall and their reconstruction wherever required. And obviously, as in all projects, we had the rerouting of the services of telecom, CB, CWA, etc. Those undertaken by the NDU included, in addition to the works I mentioned earlier, the following: construction of 955 meters of covered reinforced concrete drain with a width of 700 millimeters, construction of 100 meters of covered reinforced concrete drain with a width of 1,000 millimeters, provision of curbs, slab gratings, and here also relocation of services, and after there will be also the restatement of the road along the drain edge. I'm informed that as at to date, the outstanding works from Avenue Dauphin to sea outlets to be completed by the NDU are the resurfacing of 104 meters of road, construction of 50 meters of drain of a width of 700 millimeters, and construction of 55 millimeters of drain of a width of 1,000 millimeters. With respect to Part D of the question, I'm informed by the RDA that the upgrading works started 9 February 2019 and were completed on the 23rd December 2019 before the contractual completion date of 10 February 2020. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Ce projet d'élargissement et de rénovation de la route de Pointe-Sable figurera très certainement dans le prochain rapport du directeur de l'audit comme l'un des projets avec une mauvaise gestion et, j'ose le dire, avec un gaspillage de fonds publics. Le ministre, dans sa réponse, a affirmé que nous parlons de 200 mètres de route qui dure depuis 2019. Et je précise pour ceux qui nous écoutent qu'il s'agit de 200 mètres et non pas de 200 mètres aller-retour, comme dirait l'autre. Sur le site de la NDU, un document émis en date du 18 février 2021 précise l'exclusion de Best Construct Corporation Limited de tout exercice d'approvisionnement pour une période de 6 mois à effet du 17 février 2021, soit en plein projet de upgrading de cette route. Puis-je savoir de l'honorable ministre les sanctions qui ont été prises au-delà de cette exclusion et des pénalités qui ont été appliquées à Best Construct Limited pour ce chantier exécrable?
Mr. Speaker, sir, it's easy to come and do politics on anything and everything. I have mentioned earlier, yes, in the first instance, it was 200 meters, but then it was when RDA and NDU tried to do the project together, so we've extended the scope of work to 500 meters. So once again, it's not 500 meters back and forth, it's 500 meters. So pertaining to Best Construct, I've said in my reply, we have had contractual issues. But also, there were land acquisition issues. And yes, Best Construct was sanctioned, and Honorable Member will agree that it's a company employing so many people, trying to take sanction which may please la galerie, but there will be fathers and mothers working in that company as maçons, laboureurs will end up on the street. So this government has a concern about these people also. And that company was given the chance, after having been suspended, but was also given the chance to remedy, because that work has already started. Now, in the middle of it, if we were to go and find another contractor, firstly, it would have taken much more time, and no other contractor, as we have seen in the past, will try to come and complete the work of someone else, then the cost will be higher. And in this case, we have done what needed to be done. The contractor is on site and is working, and the work gonna be completed in, as I said, 31st July this financial year. And as I said in my reply again, the contractor is working, the NDU is supervising. Some issues that happen on one of those sites are not totally under our control. But we do as much as we want. We have issues on those construction sites. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir.
Monsieur le Président, j'emprunte cette route régulièrement, chaque semaine. Et je dois dire que depuis 2 mois, je n'ai vu aucun travaux de réaliser, comme l'affirme Monsieur le ministre. Cette question que j'ai adressée aujourd'hui au ministre des Infrastructures nationales fait écho à l'ajournement que j'ai soulevé à 3 reprises dans cette Chambre en adressant ma question à l'honorable Ganou pour un problème de transport routier. Et je m'adresse aujourd'hui au nom des pères et des mères du morcellement sous bras qui, depuis 3 ans, voient un trafic incessant de bus déviés dans leur route, dans leur morcellement, le long de la rue Guillaume Apollinaire, pour laquelle j'ai déposé une pétition mardi dernier. Ces habitants n'en peuvent plus d'une déviation qui avait été annoncée comme étant temporaire et qui dure depuis 3 ans. Le ministre peut-il s'engager pour la date de juillet 2022 ? Parce que des dates, on en a parlé et reparlé à chaque fois dans cette Chambre à propos de ce projet qui me paraît interminable et je le redis, c'est un chantier exécrable réalisé par Best Construct.
Mr. Speaker, sir, it's all depends how the honourable member want to see things. Whether he want to see half full or half empty, it's up to him. And as he mentioned, he's going there 2 months, but I said in my reply again, they don't listen, Mr. Speaker, sir. Work has started early this month. Work has started. So obviously, if he was there 2 months before, there wouldn't have been anything. That's logic. And Mr. Speaker, sir, 90% of the job has been completed by the RDA. It has been done wonderfully. The contractor was Gamma Construction. S'il veut polémiquer, on va passer des heures à s'expliquer. As said, work has started again, and it's gonna be completed 31st July 2022. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister is very tolerant towards the contractor Best Construct. Is he aware that this contractor has been defaulting several contracts and currently there are court cases between, between the CWA and this contractor. Yes?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I don't think I have said I was tolerant against any contractor. I think that honourable member will have to remove what he said, because this is imputing motives. Firstly.
You have to remove that.
Mr. Speaker, sir, we are talking about public funds for contract which is...
Remove that.
No, I'm not, let me explain.
You insist?
Can I explain first?
You insist? Or you
I will remove it. I will remove it.
Imputing motives, there has been a point of order, you'll be imputing motives.
No, what the, yeah.
Why don't you?
I will withdraw. I will withdraw.
You withdraw. Okay.
But
Now,
I will...
You reply to this question.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Those contracts are given or allocated by the CPB and the PPO. They are the ones who allocate the contracts. The minister or no the ministry has anything to do, firstly. And a contract, as I said, that has already started, where someone has already been working. We have seen cases in other constituencies where one contractor, like for instance in the case of PADCO, then on a eu toutes les difficultés du monde pour retrouver des contracteurs à venir terminer les travaux parce qu'ils ne veulent pas. Alors, dans ce cas-là, on a pu faire ce qu'il fallait et les travaux sont en train d'être faits, les project managers sont en train de suivre, les fonctionnaires de ce pays sont en train de faire leur travail. Il ne faut pas venir dans le Parlement, sous l'immunité des parlementaires, attaquer aux fonctionnaires.
In his reply, the minister has made mention of a project ending at Petit Verger Junction. This is a part of our constituency number 20. Has the minister been informed from Junction Petit Verger to Pointe-aux-Sables, falling under constituency 20, wherein Gamma Civic did the project, that there were no provision for drains, only footpath, which is causing a lot of hardship to the inhabitants in cases of heavy rain. Can the minister at least direct his officers to have a survey be done from Junction Petit Verger up to Pointe-aux-Sables, with regard to land drainage?
I take note, Mr. Speaker, sir, but you will appreciate this will form part of the main question.
The table has been advised that PQB 369, 373, 380, 415, 419, 417, 433, 375, 383, 402, 429, 386, 387, 405 have been withdrawn. Next question.
B346.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed by the Police de l'Environnement that 74 contraventions comprising 37 from Port-Louis South and 37 from Port-Louis North have been established in the region of Port-Louis since January 2020 to 14th of April 2022 in regard to loud noises emanating from motorcycles, causing nuisance in breach of the Road Traffic Construction and Use of Vehicles Regulations 2010. The offences relate mainly to breach of Regulations 83.2 and 83.3 regarding exhaust silencer system, not in good and efficient order, and operation of silencer system, respectively. And two, breach of Regulation 84.3 for using a motor vehicle causing excessive noise. In fact, Mr. Speaker, sir, during the same period, 166 contraventions have been also and 484 contraventions have been established by local police in the region of Port-Louis. I am additionally informed by the Ministry of Land Transport and Light Rail that since March 2020 to March 2022, the authorized vehicle examination stations reported 794 cases where fitness certificates could not be issued to two-wheelers due to modified silencers. Mr. Speaker, sir, Section 191 of the Road Traffic Act makes provision for fixed penalties for road traffic offences as specified under the 4th schedule, which was amended in 2018 to include, amongst others, fixed penalties for the following: exhaust silencer system not in good and efficient order, altering silencer system, using a motor vehicle causing excessive noise, and using or causing or permitting to be used a motor vehicle not as per prescribed standard for noise emission. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to highlight that, as I mentioned in PNQ B48 in July 2020, the need to abate the problem of noise from motorcycles emitting loud noises due to modified silencers was discussed at the Assise de l'Environnement held by my ministry in December 2019. The quantum of fixed penalties was subsequently increased by the Ministry of Land Transport and Light Rail to make the law more stringent against defaulters through the Road Traffic Amendment Schedules Regulations 2020 as follows: exhaust silencer system not in good and efficient order from 1,000 rupees to 5,000 rupees, altering silencer system from 2,000 to 5,000 rupees, and using or causing or permitting to be used a motor vehicle as prescribed standard for noise emission from 2,000 to 5,000 rupees. Moreover, Mr. Speaker, sir, sensitization campaigns in relation to noise pollution arising from vehicles are being carried out by the Police de l'Environnement through community policing with the support of neighborhood officers from police stations throughout the island. Regular mobile patrols and stop-and-check exercises are being conducted at sensitive areas. In fact, besides the alteration of silencers, which causes noise nuisance, my ministry is currently also reviewing the Environment Protection Control of Noise Regulations 2008 to address other types of noise nuisances, such as playing loud music in vehicles and bungalows. The endeavor is to empower an authorized officer, including a police officer, or the enforcing agency, being the Ministry of Health and Wellness, to issue a fixed penalty of 10,000 rupees for the offense of making or causing noise to be made from a vehicle, building, or premises.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, has been raised in Parliament so many times. To worsen. Will the Minister de l'Environnement with the other units authority for better control?
Monsieur le Président, c'est vrai que de dire que le Main Enforcement Agency, c'est la police de l'environnement. Mais comme enforcement officers, les membres de la force régulière sont des enforcement officers. Nous avons eu des séances de travail avec le commissaire de police qui nous a donné la garantie, bien sûr, que les autres membres de la force policière seront d'un apport certain pour qu'on puisse sévir contre ces cas de pollution sonore, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Honourable Minister inform the House whether his ministry is considering to reinforce the team of police de l'environnement to address the problem for a better result?
Monsieur le Président, donc, si j'ai les renseignements avec moi. Oui, donc, le personnel de la police de l'environnement s'élève à 34 officiers. 34 officiers. Et là, nous avons eu des séances de travail avec la force policière. Nous sommes en train de voir avec le commissaire de police la possibilité de renforcer l'équipe. Et donc, je suis tout à fait d'accord avec le gouvernement qu'il y va du combat même, du bien fondé du combat contre les différentes formes de pollution, qu'on puisse renforcer l'équipe au niveau de la police de l'environnement.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister has listed a series of measures and action that his ministry is taking, but insofar as modified and altered exhaust silencers are concerned, can I ask him whether this action goes to the workshop that does the modifications for the motorcycle and motor vehicle to become so loud, so noisy? Because if the problem is tackled at source, maybe the police will have an easier job.
Monsieur le Président, je dois dire que nous sommes en train de travailler là-dessus. À titre de parallèle, nous sommes venus de l'avant avec les nouveaux règlements en ce qui concerne les véhicules fumigènes. En ce qui concerne les règlements concernant les véhicules fumigènes, oui, les règlements nous donnent la possibilité d'entrer dans les garages pour faire des vérifications, pour constater sur place s'il y a lieu de sévir contre les véhicules fumigènes. Mais en ce qui concerne les silencers, à ce stade des choses, la loi ne nous donne pas cette possibilité. Mais c'est une éventualité sur laquelle nous sommes en train de travailler, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, the issue of motorcycle emitting loud noises has been canvassed in this House for more than 10 years by myself and from other colleagues from the opposition side. And I must say up to now, the result has been very disappointing. And having said that, will the Honourable Minister agree with me that the only way forward to have positive results in this fight is to make our law, to make penalties much tougher, including the seizure of motorcycle emitting loud noises for habitual offenders. Because I heard the Honourable Minister say there is a maximum penalty for 5,000 rupees. I can tell you it's not enough. You just have to come in Port Louis. And I'm sure in other cities as well. And you will see l'ampleur de la situation.
Monsieur le Président, comme je l'ai mentionné, nous prenons très sérieusement le problème de pollution sonore. Et là, comme je l'ai mentionné dans ma réponse initiale, nous sommes en train de finaliser l'amendement de l'Environment Protection Control of Noise Regulations de 2008. L'idée, c'est de combattre la pollution sonore sous toutes les formes et nous sommes en train de venir de l'avant avec des propositions en ce qui concerne les fixed penalties. Les fixed penalties iront jusqu'à une somme de 10 000 roupies.
Last supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, in his answer, the Honourable Minister mentioned about 34 staffs working for the Police de l'Environnement. We have the same situation in Locornu and Lakia. Can the Honourable Minister inform the House of the working hours of the staffs, please? Is it 9 to 4 or do they work over and above 4 p.m.?
Non, je dois dire que la police de l'environnement travaille pour 24 heures, Monsieur le Président. Donc le bureau de la police de l'environnement, les substations qui existent à travers le pays, travaillent 24 heures sur 24, Monsieur le Président.
Honourable members, I'll suspend the sitting for 1 hour and a half.